Okay, apparently I'm live. Am I live? I hope I'm live. I might test on another device. YouTube wouldn't let me test the microphone, which is weird. So I hope I'm live. Can you hear me? Please let me know in the chat. I see Rowan. Hey, Rowan. Enjoy your salt and pepper wings. Yes. Oh, hey. MK, if that's your name, I recognize your avatar from comments. Cool. Good. Good. I'm gonna see what it looks like on my end. Oh, I've got a whatchamacallit now? Echo. That'll do. Cool. All right, a bit of housekeeping first of all. Sorry to be boring. This is a first for me, other than a test I did. Please forgive me if I make a fool of myself. This is all new to me. I have researched a lot and watched resources, read resources, so I think I'm the best prepared I can be. This is also not my usual webcam. Sorry, it's not my usual mic setup and camera for when I do the regular videos. So I don't think the quality will be as good. If it's an issue, then in the future I'll use something else. Hey, sound quality is worse than during your regular videos. Yeah, sorry, I said that and then saw your comments. Hey there, how are you? You're being very helpful, first of all. Thank you very much, Nikos, if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. As you'll know from my videos, I'm terrible at pronouncing everything ever. Yeah, what else was I going to say? Apparently, there's a Q&A functionality, but I tested it and it didn't work. So if you want to leave questions, just leave them in the regular chat. I don't want to like try a Q&A that doesn't work, so we'll just do that, I think. I'm also had a bit of a sore throat recently. I have had a straps, like a lozenge just before this, and some painkillers, so hopefully I'll be okay, but we'll see. Hopefully I'll be, I was hoping to do an hour, but if I really struggle, we'll see how I get on. Cool, thanks for saying that the audio is not as good, but doable. Once you finish scoffing food, you have questions. Yeah, feel free to throw some questions at me. If nobody has any questions, I'll just do some Tarokka deck draws. I've got the Tarokka deck here. But we'll see. Don't push yourself too much. Health is important. Thanks, guys. It is. It's really annoying. I've had this like on again, off again bug thing for about 2 weeks now. A week ago, the symptom was that I just felt like really sort of run down and tired. And now I've had a sore throat. So it's really annoying how if it's not one thing, it's another thing. And I haven't felt my usual self for a little while now. Let's have a look at, I got some notes over here on the screen. It's my second screen. Just as a reminder, in addition to Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft, feel free to ask me about DM's Guild. I've put out 3 resources. YouTube, you know, if any of you want to know more about sort of behind the scenes stuff or why I started doing this, stuff like that. I've written a couple of fantasy novels and a business book years ago, which I don't think I even really talk about. About 5-6 years ago, I put out a business book, self-published. Happy to talk about it, you know, stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily just have to be D&D, Curse of Strahd Ravenloft necessarily. Oh, first question from Alvin. What's your favorite way to make players feel fear in Curse of Strahd? Are there specific techniques or tools you found work most consistently at the table? I think the first one that jumps to mind, first thing I'll say is I'm sort of more dark fantasy than horror. And you'll see people say that like D&D is not suited for horror. There's other systems that are better suited for horror. I know there's horror mechanics, like I think it's called Fear and Stress in Van Richten's guide, but horror is hard to do. The one thing I was going to say, I'd remembered, sorry, it jumped out of my head and then I've remembered again. Let NPCs big people up or say, this is dangerous, this is bad. I talk about this in like the video I did where I talk about introducing Strahd. the module as it's written has some great sort of stepping stones for like making Strahd scary. Where they see the March of the Dead and they hear, oh yeah, that's all the people who tried to fight Strahd. They go to Sir Pool encampment and there's the Vistana telling the story of the powerful wizard who lost to Strahd. There's all the people in Vallaki who are scared of him and they don't want to say his name, and the Baron puts on these festivals because he's terrified he'll return. Stuff like that works really well. And then when your players do meet him, hopefully they'll realize he's got a reputation. He's built up this reputation, and you can have NPCs do it as well. Or NPCs might say, oh, you don't want to go to Berez. You don't want to go to Argynvost Holt. It's dangerous there. And, and it might be your players might be like, yeah, whatever. But, and it's a good thing for helping them. Like if they're lower leveled, it's like as if to say, hint, hint, do this later, don't do this now. But I think that can build up a bit of anticipation. And then I like to do things like with music. So sometimes I just change the music to something a bit spookier, and my players are like, oh no, what's going on? And especially if it's like exploration. So I did this thing, I think I've talked about it in one of my videos, where they had to return to the village of Barovia, and Strahd set up a trap where Doru was in a house, escaped. And I just had a map ready. It was like on roll 20, a top-down random Barovian house. Put some scary music on. I think it's a song called Haunted by Tabletop Audio. And I could tell my players were like nervous, checking each room, being like, oh no, something's going to happen at some point. So even stuff like that can help. And then, of course, using things like fog of war or dynamic lighting, so they can't quite see everything and stuff's revealed, that can help. And then, of course, using things like fog of war or dynamic lighting, so they can't quite see everything and stuff's revealed bit by bit. And then having tokens hidden and then like, boom, Doru's jumped out of a wardrobe, which is actually something that happened. Just stuff like that. I hope that helps. I'm probably the one, it feels like a weak point of mine, like getting the sort of horror and scariness across. So, there's probably more I could do, but hope that helps. Nikos, secondly, I am thinking of adding an adult red vampire dragon. Ooh. The Strahd keeps in Castle Ravenloft. The party will be directed to using something from the Amber Temple to resurrect Argynvost. Yeah. There was an old Castle Ravenloft board game that had and in that it has like parts of the castle, and it definitely has the crypts. And he has a Dracolich called Gravestorm. So it could even be what I'm trying to get at is that's like, well, it's not canon, but you know what I mean? It's like it's in something, it's in an old product, albeit not like a module or a campaign book, but still, as Strahd has had a pet Dracolich at one point. So I would totally say that that's fine to do. I think it's a cool idea. You can maybe have it as a red Dracolich who has some sort of vampiric ability. That would be cool. Resurrecting Argynvost is a thing I've heard quite a lot of DMs, and not quite a lot of DMs. I imagine it doesn't come up very often, but when it does, it sounds really cool. I've heard it a few times. I want to do a video at some point, which is like the most popular, or no, the wildest resurrection possibilities, and I think Argynvost is obviously one of them. Your question, I didn't realize it's split into parts. You're talking about resurrect Argynvost Holt as an adult silver dragon to have an epic fight between Strahd and his dragon, 4 PCs in Argynvost. I think that's cool. What you've got to be wary of is that classic thing of, and I don't know if this is a wider problem with TTRPGs as a whole, or if it's just like a 5th edition thing, but action economy and having like additional minions. My players had Rictavio as the ally, but they also managed to convince Davian Martikov to go with them and Viktor Valakovich. Actually, no, Davian didn't. They tried to convince Davian. He said no, but then he appeared anyway in the final battle. And I had quite a few PCs. There's Strahd's minions, Rictavio. I think Esmeralda was there as well. And my players were fine with that because they like having NPC allies, but it did mean they had fewer turns. They had less action. It made combat longer, but some players hate that. Some players get bored in between their turns. And so all I'd say is if you're adding 2 more dragons, it's cool and it's epic. But if you're playing it out then as a proper roll initiative battle, you just got to be wary of that's more chaos. It's more for you to manage. and it's less turns the players have. But if your player, you know your players, if your players might think that's the coolest thing you've ever seen in their life. So, so you know, maybe gauge it based on what you think is best. But that's the only thing I'd suggest is the more minions, NPCs, and stuff you add, the more it can slow stuff down. And the question from Alvin. Follow-up question is: how do you keep players immersed in horror once they've grown powerful enough to fight back, especially after gaining artifacts like the Sunsword Holy Symbol? Yeah, that's tough. And I find that really tough these days in my wider Ravenloft campaign, which we continued after Curse of Strahd. Same characters, they're now level 16. And you hear a lot of people say that tier 3, tier 4, so that's like level 10 onwards essentially, they're essentially like superheroes and they're indestructible. There have been a few times I've been able to KO them or like significantly wound them, but it is harder. I guess it's just, it's all a learning curve, isn't it? And you don't want to like have challenges, encounters that are so challenging that, you know, they're instant TPKs, but I've just tried to do more difficult, you know, the classic thing of more difficult encounters, more encounters during the day, things like that. In Curse of Strahd, if we're talking about sort of levels 8, 9, 10, I mean, you've got things like the Amber Temple and Berez, which aren't easy anyway, especially the Amber Temple. My players went there at level 11, albeit there were only 2 of them. And Neferin nearly TPK'd everyone. And that was at level 11. And then once they have Sunsword and Holy Symbol, something like a group as Vampyr spawn is going to be a much easier threat than it used to be. But there's Rahadin, there's other minions, you know, Strahd summoning bats and rats, and I'm drawing a blank. There's going to be loads of stuff. Skeletons, wights, zombies who aren't affected by sunlight. I mean, some of those I mentioned are still quite weak anyway, but at least like they're not affected by that. So you can still have, you know, I think if Strahd catches wind, they have something that can do sunlight. He'll keep his distance, and he's not going to send in Vampyr spawn, but he'll think of something else. You know, play the General Strahd, the Tactician, Commander Strahd, and think, oh, he'd send other things after them instead. Should have a quick drink to quench my thirst, or appease my throat, I should say. Question from Rowan: how do you handle and recommend keeping the pace when players are dragging their feet, or if the table falls silent when you've brought up a topic to discuss? Sometimes it's just good to, when they go silent, like one of my one of my players properly really takes their time to think about stuff, and if anything I'd be worried about rushing them. So sometimes they go silent and I give them a good 5-10 seconds, and I'm the kind of person as well who will, like, I wouldn't say I'm impatient, but like I like to keep things going, and long periods of silence make me feel a bit like, oh, no one's having fun. But you know, it's them processing everything, it's them thinking of stuff. Sometimes it's I mean, you know your players better than me, but sometimes you might feel that when your table falls silent, I suppose it depends on the moment and what's going on, but having them fall silent might be a good thing because they're properly like thinking about things. They might not want to rush to answer or make a decision on stuff. If they're dragging their feet, see, I always like having at least, the good thing about like the Fated Ally is they've always got someone with them to bounce ideas off, someone who, if they've forgotten something, can say something. Obviously, it depends on the ally. If you've got like Piddlewick 2, that's no good, because I don't think Piddlewick 2 speaks in the vanilla version of Curse of Strahd. And, you know, if it's someone like Parry Wimple, he's probably not going to be able to contribute much. And, you know, if it's someone like Rictavio or Esmeralda, they've probably got a lot they can say and stuff that's helpful. But sometimes you can kind of give them a nudge through an NPC. And at the end of the day, I don't think it might break immersion a bit, but there probably wouldn't be the end of the world if you just, as a DM, said, oh, out of character, don't forget, you've got to consider this, or don't forget we talked about that. Because it might just be that they've genuinely forgotten stuff as well. It's that classic thing of, you know, it might be, you say if you play weekly, it might be a week since the last session, but in game, it might have just been a couple of hours. So, you know, the players might have forgotten stuff the characters haven't, so that kind of thing. Pet Dracolich doesn't sound like something that would end well for most people. No, I know. Because they're quite a high challenge rating, aren't they? Can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure it's probably higher than what Strahd is. Thank you for your answer. I'll pay attention to that for sure. No worries. Question is also, do you really need to keep it the horror when they are able to fight back, or whether this is part of the fantasy of playing D&D? Depends on your players, I'd wager. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And especially if you lean more towards dark fantasy. What I think is really good about Curse of Strahd, and I don't think this gets talked enough, is they arrive, they're weak. Death House is hard if you do Death House. Certain parts of the module are hard, like the coffin shop for sure. And random encounters might get easier. So random encounter at like level 3, 4, depending on what it is. If it's the werewolves and it's really early on, that's going to be scary. But, you know, and it assumes as well you're doing like the random encounters in the book and you're not changing them and scaling them harder. But say if like at level 7 or 8, they get something and they add that you smash it, I think that's not a terrible thing. It's not. Maybe you might think it's not great, and it's certainly not horror if they're easily dispatching of enemies. But one, players love that. It's like, hey, yeah, now the tides are turning. You know, we're kicking butt. And what was the other point I was going to make? It sort of signals to them that they're getting closer to being ready. So if they're on the way to Castle Ravenloft and for the end game, and they easily dispatch of a battle, some DMs might be like, oh, that's a shame, that was a waste of time, it didn't really hurt them. But the players are like, yeah, now we're ready, we're going to walk in there, and then they get killed by the gargoyles or whatever. They're like, no, we're not ready, we take it back. But you know what I mean? It's kind of that thing of they know they are getting better and getting stronger in this scary land, and you know, and maybe that does lean more into the sort of heroic fantasy. But I don't think there's, you know, that's a terrible thing necessarily. I think that's that can be good, but again, I think it depends on the players. It depends on stuff like that. I've got players who are really into things like Castlevania, so I think that the idea of, you know, getting stronger and fighting evil and, you know, stuff like that. I think I don't know if they would like me saying this, but I'm pretty sure one of my players is a bit of a min-maxer, and but they love it, and I'm happy if they're happy, I'm happy, you know. And yeah, I feel like my throat's going already. Bad news. I've got 2 drinks on the go. I hope no one minds. I've got a water and a whiskey. V Clentini, if that's your name. Hi, I recognise your name and avatar as well. Hello. Another message from MK. If you got invited into another cause campaign and didn't have reservations due to how well you know the module, what kind of character would you be interested in playing? This is probably a really disappointing and obvious and boring answer, but I would play someone who's the silent type or someone who's not very bright. So give me the excuse to, because if in character I say, oh yes, you know, if I forget, because my worry is I certainly wouldn't spoil anything on purpose, but I'd be worried about spoiling something by accident. Like mentioning, like forgetting that the group I'm in may not know who Rictavio actually is or something like that, and saying, or who the Martikovs are, or what they are. And that would be the fear for me. So if I had a player who didn't speak much or at all, or who was like not very bright, and I've got the excuse not to be able to say much, that is probably what I'd play. But I think that's kind of the classic thing that I'm sure I've seen this on discussions on the Curse of Strahd subreddit and places where people say, oh, you know, it's fine to replay cause, maybe play that kind of character. And I think that's the kind of character I'd play. I like those kinds of characters. There's a character I'm playing in a one-shot soon who I'm purposely given an intelligence of 6. So I'm downgrading his intelligence. Is not only his dump stat, but I'm actually downgrading it and making him less intelligent. And he's just it's like a gentle giant trope. And he's not a bright guy, but he's strong and he's friendly. A bit like the BFG, for those of you who know who BFG, Roald Dahl. I can't remember. It's been a while since I read BFG or watched the movie, whatever they did. I can't remember if he was super, if he wasn't bright or if he was actually deceivingly bright. But anyway, I'm getting off topic now. I'm getting sidetracked. Talking dice, luck, and superstitions. Are you known for always rolling high or low? Am I always known for rolling high or low? Right. I've got some anecdotes here. First time playing D&D in my life. First roll I did was a natural 1. I think that tells you everything you need to know about my luck when it comes to rolling dice. I got a dice set. So my experience first playing D&D, not counting like I think like a sort of taster session where it was literally like I rolled dice twice. But the first time I properly joined the campaign, I was a human fighter, and my DM ran Curse of Strahd. But instead of Death House, we did Wolves of Walton for people know it. It's available for free online. It's good. And the very first roll I did was a natural 1. No, it is available for free online. It's good. And the very first roll I did was a natural 1. And I bought this dice set, and I swear, I know people say this when they have bad dice, but I swear to you the D20 was cursed or broken or wrong, because I rolled so many natural 1s on it. Excuse me. And what I even did 100 rolls to test it, and I think I had like 3 natural 20s and about 15 natural 1s. So yes, it could just be probability. It could just be that I happened to roll natural 1s on it more, but that die, there's something wrong with that die. And then after that, I've not been as bad. But yeah, I still have flashbacks to those rolls and that character who never could seem to hit anything in his life. If you know, I know whenever I got a natural 20, it was like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. Rowan, like myself, you run games on Roll20. How do you recommend handling traveling around the map of Barovia? Oh, when they first arrived to Fog of War, I think they've changed the name of it to Hide, Reveal, Mask. I had to activate it on a map I'm preparing for my players in my game, and I'm sure it's called Hide, Reveal, Mask now. And only reveal like where they know. Once they get hold of a map, reveal everything. Trying to think what else. Obviously do like I don't so much do like the measurement tool, the hexes. I just use like say for like point A to point B, I use the Dragna Carta calculator travel time tool to get an idea of, oh, it'll take so many miles and therefore so many hours. I'm trying to think what else. I have a token that's just like so all my players designed their characters on Hero Forge, and then those are what we use for tokens using token stamp, and then we made a token stamp token that's like all at the time it was like all 6 of them, 5, 6 of them together, and now it's 3 because I only got 3 players these days, and I use that as the token for when they go around the map, on the roads and stuff. That I can't think of anything else. If you got more, if I didn't answer an aspect you were wondering about, let me know. But I hope that helps. I heard a story from another dungeon tuber years ago where one of their players never rolled a high and it became just a trope. Yeah, and you get it with NPCs sometimes. I've seen a few people say that Ismark never rolls high in their campaign. And before we did Lost Mine of Fandalva, before we did Curse of Strahd, we did Lost Mine of Fandalva. And minor spoilers if people don't know Lost Mine of Fandalva, but that thing's been out for about 10 years now. There's an NPC in it called Sildar, who is a member of the Lord's Alliance. He's essentially a knight. And I had him join for the final dungeon. He's not supposed to, scripted, but I had him join, and he rolled terribly. And it becomes that thing, isn't it, of like, that's what that person's known for. It's like, are you going to hit something today? And it was like that with my PC in the Curse of Strahd game as well. How do you decide when to offer light or hope in a world of tragedy? I want to keep horror palatable yet give relief before players create themselves through humour or misplaced tension. I would say early on, it's a tough one. So, because the answer to that is, as they do more stuff in the module, there is more hope. Things like they do the winery and get wine back to Vallaki. That's like the people have hope. Maybe getting rid of the abbot in Kresk, if that happens, or clearing the werewolf den. And it's just all these things happen incrementally. Before that, though, it's tricky because they do arrive. They might, help Irina. One thing I did, which helped, but this might not work for everyone, if you do Death House straight into Village of Barovia. We did Lost Mine of Fandalva first, and when Ismark and Irina met them, they were asking, "Oh, tell me about your adventures. What's it like outside Barovia?" And they were able to say some stuff, and we defeated this guy in this mine and helped the town nearby. And that I felt like helped a bit early on, because they just arrived in this miserable land and they missed the place they came from. They just helped the town and then straight away they misted away elsewhere. And that helped. Even if you do Death House, you could even have it like, it's almost like Irina and Ismail asked the question, but it's more backstory related. Like, where did you come from before you got dragged into Barovia in the Death House? And then that might get them sort of talking about their pasts. And some people might have the classic tragic backstories, but then you might have some who reminisce and say some good stuff, maybe something like that. But it's hard until they've done some stuff of note and done some stuff. That's when it starts to feel like you're introducing hope and light in this bleak, horrible place. We have the Asim curse. All Asimov characters roll low. It is a meme in my D&D group. Cool. I played alongside an Asim and he always rolled really high, funny enough. He was the one who got all the natural 20s. He's the one who cursed my die, probably. Answered it perfectly. Oh, great. Thanks, Rowan. If you do have any further questions, let me know. Adam, I love your videos. Appreciate you being so active in various Raiden and Ravenloft fan communities. Thank you. Have you read any of the Quoth the Raven netzines on the Fraternity Shadow site or the Books of S? Quoth the Raven, yes. I used some of it for, I want to say, the Sea of Sorrows. So for those of you who don't know, the Sea of Sorrows is it's essentially Ravenloft's Gothic pirates. It's the seafaring side of things. So I borrowed a lot from Ghost of Saltmarsh for that, and just made it more Gothic. Although some of the stuff in Ghost of Saltmarsh is already quite Gothic. It's quite cool that it works well. So yes, I have delved into some of them, not a lot. I've not read any of them cover to cover. I just tend to dip into them. If what I do is I look up stuff on Misterpedia and it might reference Quoth the Raven, issue 20, and then I'll jump into issue 20 and read more. One of them, it might have actually been issue 20, had inn suggestions and taverns for some of the islands, so that was handy. Books of S, is that the Gazetteers? Again, yes, I've read some of those and borrowed from some of those. So I think I'm running Azalin at the moment, which is the domain that's ruined by magic, and it has wild magic surges, and the Dark Lord is a red wizard of Thay. And I think in the Gazetteer for Hazlan, there's suggestions of inns and taverns for different settlements. So I borrowed from those. So yeah, that's what I tend to use them for, additional NPCs, additional info about places and stuff like that. They're really good. I have another sip per second. Yeah. Sorry. Wow. Irina as a sidekick in my campaign is famous for reading. Hi, see? This is the thing, isn't it? They all get reputations. They're either amazing or terrible. How do you recommend making Rahadin fearsome again? I was running Village Barovia by Dragnar's Guide, and my players called Rahadin Wink. And when they see him again, I want to put the fear in him. I think Rahadin is pretty scary without even making him scary. There was a Reddit post where someone was like, "Oh, Rahadin's boring. I want to make him more interesting." It's like, you stand near him and you hear screaming. That is terrifying. When my DM first explained it, when I was a player, I was like, this guy's terrifying. And then when I did it with my players, they felt the same way. I can't speak for Dragon's Guide. I have borrowed from some reloaded stuff, but I don't know it super well. I imagine Rahadin would probably just go away from that and just be like, oh, what a bunch of idiots. But he's too... And you get this vibe from Heir of Strahd. If you've read Heir of Strahd, spoiler, Rahadin's in it. And he will, I think the players might insult him. Maybe it's kind of muttered under their breaths or out of earshot. But he kind of just goes along with it because, he wouldn't want to upset Strahd. These are his playthings. But if Strahd gave him the order to, hit them, oh boy, he would. And then I would just have him, play him as the not the straight guy. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Deadpan, serious. When my players in the end game were exploring the castle, and they found him in his office, and it says in there that he attacks them and fights until dead. I had it where he just spoke to them really quietly, and then pulls out his scimitar and starts screaming at them and charging at them. And I think the players are like, whoa! And bearing in mind, there are quite a few players and NPC allies versus Rahadin, so he got destroyed in the action economy. but then a Shadow Demon appeared, and some of them still got hurt because of the bonus action screaming voices thing. I think that was a cool thing. So have him play like, you know, straight, make the players think that, oh, we can say anything to this guy and he's not going to care. But if he does, you know, when if he's given an order to then like attack them, play him as like fearsome and brutal. And because I think his attacks are quite strong. He's like 3 scimitar attacks in a round, I think, if memory serves, and he can also bonus action his weapon to make it stronger, stuff like that. And in bonus action, the screaming, psychic damage, stuff like that. That's how I would do it. They're not going to think he's a weakling or, you know, anything like that for much longer after that. I'd be interested in your writing process. Like, when do you find the time to write? Where do you do it? How do you keep free? If you're talking about the novels, or you're talking about you know, writing for the campaign I'm doing, the question is I don't anymore. So YouTube kind of replaced the writing. I've not done as much writing this past year compared to like previous years. I wrote the novels sort of like 2002, 3. First one came out in 2004, and then the YouTube channel came along in 2000. Sorry, not two. Getting tongue tied. 2023, not 2003. 2023, 2024 is when the first one came out, and I started the YouTube channel 2024 last year. And at the moment, it's a case of if I were to do writing, I'm going to take my video off, I'm really hot. If I were to do writing, I would have no time for YouTube. And I'm enjoying doing the YouTube. YouTube's going well. And, you know, I might get to the point where there's like a nice balance in the future and I can do both. But at the moment, I don't have time for writing. So any free time I have at the moment goes towards YouTube, basically. So sorry, that's a bit of a rubbish answer. When you factor in, I've got like I'm self-employed with a job, family, downtime, and then YouTube. You know, there's no time for writing unless I do that YouTube. Another question: how do you handle your session plans? Do you write a lot or use bullet points, shorter paragraphs? I started off just doing bullet points, and the problem was when I looked back. I'd be like, oh, I've only done a bullet point, it's not detailed enough. So they're a lot more detailed now. It's really funny. The very first session we had, which was basically just like the first battle in Lost Mine of Fandalva, there was just one bullet point that just said like Goblin Battle, and that was it. And now I'll be like, they curve the bend, and they find the horses, and some goblins attack, and this is what some of the PCs did in their attacks and things like that. I don't go into like massive detail. The important thing is the in-between stuff. It's like, oh, who said what, or who they met, and that's been handy because when I search back, like they've recently reunited with an NPC they met like 2 years ago out of game, and which would have been like a month or two in game, I guess, maybe a month or a few weeks. And it was important. It was handy because I was like, "Oh, did they know this about him?" And yes, they had, because I'd made decent enough notes. So I was glad about that. Books of S aren't the Gazetteers; they're netbooks. I did wonder this. Yeah, sorry. Netbooks have preceded Quoth the Raven. They're a bit tricky to find, but they're available. Oh, cool! I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Adam. The reason I thought they were the Gazetteers because S is the journalist character. Who, and I'm sure she's the author of the Gazetteers, so I'm assuming it's the same S. Thanks for answering my question. Also, do you have any particular books or media sources in Gothic horror that you like to read for inspiration? How do you handle description box text? I can take another sip of my drink. So I've said this in a few videos. I know this is really sacrilegious. I'm not a huge fan of horror. When I read, except for reading the Ravenloft novels, when I read books, they're more high fantasy. So I'm terrible. Like, I feel guilty because then you see other YouTubers who say you've got to read Dracula, you've got to read, you know, if you're going to run Lemordia, you've got to read Frankenstein. If you're going to run Folkovnia, you've got to watch the zombie stuff. And like, I don't do any of that. And so maybe I'm missing out, and maybe I'm, you know, not as good in that regard. So no, I don't tend to watch a lot of stuff like that other than, like, say, Ravenloft novels. That said, I do want to watch the recent Nosferatu movie, and I want to watch Sinners, that movie that came out recently. I've heard both of those are good for Ravenloft. I can't think. I feel like there was something I watched recently. Other than things like the Castlevania TV shows, I guess is probably the closest I get to that kind of stuff. And then I watch a couple of actual plays, and one of those is the Black Dice Society from a few years ago, which was like the Ravenloft, official Ravenloft actual play. That can be handy. So I watch some stuff like of that regard, but I'm not like a huge horror fanatic. I don't read tons of horror or watch TV shows. Other than like when you have horror moments in other TV shows, like my favorite TV show of all time is Attack on Titan, the anime, and I'd say some of that is horror. And people have described it, I think one of the bylines for it is it's the Japanese Walking Dead. So, you know, but it's not horror, I guess. But you get what I mean. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I know there's I'm a few questions behind. Sorry. I'll try my best to sort of not spend too long on one question, and so that I get through everything quickly, especially before my voice goes. If there aren't any questions I answer, I think this chat gets saved, and then I'll like do a comment afterwards and answer them that way, maybe. Or at least I'll try to. I'm not going to make any promises, just in case I'm unable to do that in the end. My players didn't even react to the screaming, so next time I think I'm going to have a sound file to play in the background for immersion. Is that Rahadin screaming? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Maybe, yeah. That would be creepy. I don't know how I got onto it, but I was listening to the Final Fantasy IX soundtrack today, and one of the songs of like the final battle has like weird, like ghostly sounding screams in the background, and that's terrifying. So yeah, if you can add something like that in the background, well, it could backfire. Players might think it's a bit goofy, and you know your players better than I do. Just like be careful that your players might find it. It might go the other way, and your players find it a bit like silly. So I don't want to say, yeah, do that. It'll be scary, and your players laugh or something. So yeah, you could do that though. Have I travelled much around British Isles? Yeah, a fair bit. So I live in Cardiff in Wales. For those of you who know the UK, that's sort of southwest. Wales is the sort of bit stuck to the left of England. So I'm about 2 hours by train from London. Outside of Wales, been down to the southwest a few times. Went to a holiday in Devon August, and have been to places like Cornwall and Dorset. Been to London a few times over the years. My wife is from Bradford in Yorkshire, so we don't tend to go up to Bradford very often. It tends to be her family visit us down here. But been to Bradford. I went to university in Lancaster, which is sort of west of England. It's sort of just above Manchester and Liverpool. Sorry, I know, Rowan, you know all this, but for any American, a lot of my audience is American, so for any American or non-UK folks, I'm kind of explaining this too. I lived a year in Leicester in the Midlands, and then just been like, been to Scotland once or twice. I've never been to Ireland or Northern Ireland. That's it mostly, I think. And then other places, like I've been to Manchester once, Liverpool once, Blackpool a couple of times. Just roundabout, basically. Remind me where you're from, Rowan. I'll probably, if you leave a comment now, I'll probably see it in like 5 minutes because there's quite a few to get through. Joe, found your channel back when I was still DMing Curse and was looking forward to using your tips and info into my game. Then Lysaga TPK'd the party. Oh no! I'm guessing you treated it as a proper TPK, like everyone's dead at the end, game over. And because I did a video about TPKs and said that in a lot of people might consider it a, how's it pronounced? Is it Deus Ex Machina? Sorry if I've got that wrong. Where like, oh, you're not actually dead, you've just been knocked out. But there are options. And funny enough, there's quite a few for Baba because she could like, I read one that was, she turns everyone into goats. Another I read, this might be Lunch Break Heroes, she turns them into mice and they've got to retrieve something from Castle Ravenloft for her, and it almost turns into like this mini adventure. Stuff like that. So, oh man, it's a shame that the TPK'd. Thank you for still enjoying my videos. Don't apologise for not having time for writing now. That makes perfect sense. I'm impressed you managed to juggle all of that. Oh, thank you. I think I was apologising more for not being able to answer your question in a satisfying way more than not being like the fact that I was basically like saying, oh, I don't write. It's annoying as well because I've written what I've been working on is a trilogy, And I've written the first two. I probably shouldn't admit all this, because if someone was thinking, oh, I was going to buy the trilogy, they might think, well, I'm not going to now if you're not going to finish the third. I have got the third. I wrote 20,000 words of it, I think, and I've got it all in my head. It's just having the time to write it. We'll see. If I get ahead with videos, or maybe don't publish as many videos, or, you know, at the moment, because of the sore throat, I've not been able to record as many videos, so maybe I will do writing instead. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. The Books of S were written by the same people who later got hired by White Wolf and Wizards of the Coast, WotC, to write the Gazetteers. Makes sense. Another question: if you could run any D&D adventure past or present, which would you want to run the most? Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a. I've always been. This is a video coming out on Monday, and I talk about this. I've always been fascinated by Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I got the book, and then I was a player in Dragon Heist, which is like the level 1 to 5 part, and then Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage can be done as, or should be done as, a sequel to it, or it can be. Doesn't have to be, but it makes sense to. And that's like level 6 to level 20. And I remember flicking through the book and seeing the different layers of this mega dungeon, just being like, wow, that'd be so much fun to run. There's another one in, oh gosh, what's it called? Tales from the Yawning Portal. I think it's called Dead in Thay, and it looks like this. It's like this 100-room Thay experiment playground. That looks like fun to run as well. So probably something like those. Basically, just a big dungeon. You know, which is just anything to say, because I love the idea of running them, but then when I actually run them, I'm terrified. Like, you know, obviously Castle Ravenloft is quite hard. I did Castle Tristan Noir from Castles Forlorn, and that's twice the size of Castle Ravenloft, and it has time fluctuations. So like some of the rooms have 2 or 3 versions. So yeah, that was chaos to run. A lot of fun, and it was really worthwhile and rewarding, but whew, it was a lot of hard work and a lot to sort of manage. Good question, thank you. In the event of a TPK at the windmill, I thought about making the hags stuff pastries into them as well, unconscious, and allowing them to live. What do you think? Yeah, that's a cool idea. Hang on, my chat sometimes when I scroll down, like, it moves differently to the rate I move it down. So sorry, I sometimes miss what people say. And if I miss a question, I'm really sorry as well. I think I've caught everything so far. If I've missed your question, it's not because I don't want to answer the question or because I don't like you. It's because I'm an idiot, basically. Yeah, you could do that. One thing I've seen is that they force, it's hag bargain time at that point. And one thing I've seen them do is they say, we want to break into the market of Vallaki. You can help us. So they want people to, they want the PCs to then take dream pastries to Vallaki and get the people of Vallaki addicted. So stuff like that. And heck, you could even use, you could do both. So you could have them, the pastry shoved in their mouths, that gets them addicted. And then maybe they say they'll be paid in more dream pastries as well, which they've also got a flog at Vallaki. Something like that, maybe. Yeah, those are good films. And we all have different creative processes. I'm glad yours has worked for you so far. Have you ever wanted to collab with PhD&D or other YouTubers? Yeah, yeah. Dr. Bowers and I have chatted a couple of times on Reddit and email. I think he's going to mention me in one of his upcoming videos because he's doing a video about Forlorn and he's going to mention my Forlorn videos. It's very kind of him. And I've mentioned him in a bunch of my videos in the past. I actually recently collaborated with, I don't know if it's a surprise or not, so I'm not going to say who it is, but another Ravenloft YouTuber who's about to put out a series of videos leading up to Halloween, and I'm going to be in one of them, so that's cool. Beyond that, there aren't many other Ravenloft YouTubers. I was interviewed by a guy who does actual plays, and he does a Curse of Strahd actual play, so he interviewed me about Curse of Strahd. So he's not a Ravenloft YouTuber, but you know, he's done Curse of Strahd. And then I was interviewed by a couple of D&D podcasters recently as well. That was fun. But yeah, I'm always up for that kind of stuff. If you follow me on Blue Sky, I'm always putting out tweets saying, love to collaborate, love to be interviewed on podcasts, YouTube, blog posts. You know, I love doing stuff like that. I basically love geeking out about Ravenloft and Curse of Strahd for hours on end. So doing it for a way that like might appear in a video and helps me and it helps them is great. Have you seen the video by Arrow the Raven that tries to summarize the official version of the Azalin plot as described in Mist Hunter Adventures? Thought that was interesting. I think I did, but it was a while ago. I really need to watch it again. I actually want to do a video detailing Mist Hunters and talking through it because I own it all. I bought the bundle and I have used some of it. If you've seen my Valachan video, I used the 2 Valachan modules when I ran the Trial of Hearts in Valachan, the jungle domain, the sort of Hunger Games in the jungle. And it was good. And so on the Trial of Hearts in Valachan, the jungle domain, the sort of Hunger Games in the jungle. And it was good. And so, and I think I'm going to borrow a lot of the last one, which is about Darkon and Azalin, for when I run the end game in this arc of the campaign that I'm doing. Is going to be the BBEG is Azalin. It's going to be in Darkon. So yeah, I think I am going to rewatch the video. It's interesting when he does videos about 5th edition stuff because he doesn't tend to. And whenever he does, usually, if it's like a comparison thing, like this is the 5th edition version of this domain or this Dark Lord, he'll say, I prefer 2nd edition. Although not always. I think once or twice he said, actually, I do prefer the 5th edition version. But I don't want to get into the whole edition thing because sometimes that can get ugly. Necro's music is peak. Have I missed any questions? Just making sure I haven't missed any. Oh, it's the bar. I keep scrolling it down and it moves. Oh, here we go. Huge fan. Thank you, Lefteris, if that's right. Quick question. How do you feel about introducing players to Kellen before they enter Barovia and have the kidnap of Kellen happen in game? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the kidnap of Kellen. I feel, oh God, what if that's like a really like obvious Curse of Strahd thing? I haven't got the book to hand. Let me just look this up on a separate screen. Is that one of the hooks that's like the werewolf hook or something like that? Maybe, because I don't know some of the hooks super well if I didn't run them. I might do a video actually talking about the different hooks. I'm giving away all my secrets and I'm telling you all the videos I'm going to do in the future. And if I don't do them, you'll be disappointed. Pressure's on now. And while this loads, I'm just going to have another drink. I appreciate as well if you answer that question. It's going to be at the bottom of the chat. I might jump ahead and have a look. That's loading a second. While that's loading, I'm going to go to the next question and come back to the one about Kellen. As a first-time DM, I find that I am railroading the players too much. How do you allow your players to be likely to live while also giving them freedom? My players are reckless combat addicts. It's a tough one because I'm someone who I freak out if I plan something and then they're like, actually, we want to go to this place. And it's like all my planning's being thrown out of the window. So I always say to my players, between sessions, like just check in. This is what you're thinking of doing next. But do let me know if you want to do something different. And then I think I always try and make sure there's always like 2 or 3 hooks or quest ideas or stuff they can do. So they're not just tied to one thing at a time. And therefore it is like a railroad. But then you usually have a good idea of what the one thing. So say if there's like 3 things they've got 3 side quests they can do. Good idea of which one they're going to do next. So yeah, and that way they have some control, but then not give them so many that they're either overwhelmed or then it could be, oh God, they choose from any of all sorts of things. Combat addicts, say. You have to tell me more about that. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. Or if you mean in terms of like they like to wander off or like cause chaos and get into fights, that might be a whole other topic. The thing I'm looking at is finally loaded. No. Let me just look at one other place. Oh, it's Kellen with an E. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Okay. In the werewolf den. Kellen werewolf den. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I'm just reading here. So he was kidnapped from a hamlet in the Forgotten Realms. So when you say Oh, I see. How do I feel about introducing him before the enter Barovia? And then, there's a link. I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to work that in, it's a cool thing to do. I had it where I made one of the kids. I had it. See, I did something similar to this. I had it So I said earlier that I ran Lost Mine of Fandalva before Curse of Strahd, and I had it that one of the kids who was kidnapped was one of the kids from Fandalin. And they were like, "Oh my god, we know this kid," and this kid was like, "Hey, I know you guys. Help me." So yeah, no, it can be good. It can be good if you can do it. But you probably have to appreciate that they might forget him, because that's before the campaign starts, and Werewolf Den is a lot later on, depending on how often you play. If you play even if you play weekly, that could be like weeks or months later. So they may need reminding, or I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that's a cool idea. I think do it if you can. And sorry that straight away I didn't. Oh, you did spell it as Kellen with an E. I thought you spelled it as Kellen as an A. My bad. I was mistyping it when I was searching for it. Also, as a first-time DM, I find that... Oh, no, sorry, I did that one, didn't I? Whoops. Because I live on the Wirral Peninsula, I am close proximity to Ireland, Wales, Liverpool, Manchester, Chester. Yeah. In fact, I went to Chester. What did I go? I went to Chester for a conference last year, a writing conference. Lovely place. A lot of Tudor architecture. I remember taking some photos, being like, "Oh, this is nice." Yeah. Yeah, nice part of the place. Like I said, I like other than Chester, and I've not been to North Wales that much either, despite being Welsh. I just live in the south. Hi, Steve. Love your channel. Your breakdowns of Lord Lives have helped me so much running Curse of Strahd. Thank you for the kind words. Really leveled. Oh, thank you. That's really kind. Thank you for everyone who's saying nice things as well. Like, I know that's a silly thing to say, but like, it means a lot. I suffer with imposter syndrome. As I'm sure many people do, but so you know, as well as boosting my ego and inflating my head, it's lovely to read this stuff. It means a lot to me, genuinely. I plan to run Binding of Vampyr before Strahd to explain why past tier has failed and give players a sense they can set things right. Any cross advice for balancing something like this? Excuse me, sorry. You want to run that before Strahd? Maybe I'm being silly here, because I know that's the Lunch Break Heroes mod, isn't it? And you run it. It's supposed to be the alternative ending where they break the Curse of Strahd. Oh, that's the name of the movie or the book, for good. Do you mean to see as like a prequel thing where, like, I don't know, what's what I'm looking for? Like, sort of, I don't know, a group of heroes try and fight Vampyr and are killed, and then you start your Curse of Strahd campaign. I might need a bit more info. Sorry, Alvin. Sorry if I'm being silly or misinterpreting what you mean. But remind me to come back to that if we don't cover that later, or you don't pass on more info. Rowan, because my Sword Coast sandbox campaign is starting in Waterdeep, I'm going to be using Yawning Portal and likely Dungeon 2. Yeah, I love... See, like I said, I was a player in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I love Waterdeep as a town. Sorry, not town, city. And the Yawning Portal is such a cool tavern. It blew my mind when I first sort of heard about it, and then when I saw like the picture in the book and things like that. It's so cool. Glad to catch us live. How do I say your name? Jeeves? So Jeeves Osiris? Question: which of Strahd's wife is your favorite as DM and why? Wow. Okay. Oh, great question. I played. I don't know how and why I came up with this, but my favorite was probably Anastasia. So I might be doing a video. I've talked about the brides in the videos before, but I might do a dedicated brides video. And I gave them all different personalities, as people do. And I sometimes see people make Ludmilla the wizard, Valenta the rogue/assassin, Asher, if we're going wider consorts, is obviously the bard. And then Anastasia is like the warrior, the fighter. And I had her, she spoke in a very sort of posh accent, but almost in like a really poetic way. She'd refer to the players as darlings. She'd be like, darlings, we must battle now. It will be a glorious fight. May the best victor win. And it was this really weird thing of like, she spoke like a really sort of posh noble lady, but it was talking like she was this sort of established warrior in the battlefield. which I felt worked well. I don't know. My players seemed to like it. And I liked it. But I just loved the way I played her, and so I did a battle where I wanted them as mini bosses throughout the campaign, but I ended up having to sort of rush the ending because two of my players were moving away. Even though we played online, they were moving somewhere with, like, they were moving to a remote part of Canada, and they were worried that we weren't going to have internet, so they couldn't use the excuse of, oh, we'll just log in on a different time zone. They thought they couldn't join at all. So we rushed the ending of the campaign, and I had stuff planned for Ludmilla and Valenta, but Anastasia was the only one they defeated before the end game. And I had it where they came back from the Mad Mage, and there was a battle by Lake Zarovich, and there was her, some vampire spawn, and a few other minions. And she was like, it was wonderful to meet you at the dinner, but it is time, the time to defeat you now. It will be glorious. May you all fight well, and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just thought it was cool. Enjoyed it. How are we doing? Necron is the final, but it was cool. Enjoyed it. How are we doing? Necron is the final boss of... Oh, sorry, yeah, you were talking about... Oh, of course, when you said Necron, I missed that earlier. And of course, I was talking about Final Fantasy IX and the freakish voices in that battle. Yes. Sorry, thank you for reminding me of that. Kellen's the small kid. Yeah, sorry. I'm catching up to the comments now where I was like, 5 minutes ago, I was like, who's Kellen and what's Necron? Silly me. Chester is a beautiful city. Thank you for your answer. No problem. Recommend Porthmadog and Llangollen. I want to say I've been to Llangollen. I've been to Portmeirion. Portmeirion was is that the one that's like it's like a little village, and it's a beautiful, it's almost like Italian style or like Mediterranean style village in North Wales, and you have to pay to go into the village. Maybe that's Porthmadog, I can get the two mixed up, but I've definitely been there. We'll be starting out my Curse of Strahd campaign next week. Any tips for me before I start? I did a tips video. The tips video I did is it's not just random tips. I went on loads that we often get on the Curse of Strahd subreddit. Somebody will say, I'm just about to start Curse of Strahd, any tips? I went through about 20 or 30 of those posts, through the comments, grabbed the most popular, most upvoted, most frequently given comments, and those are the 15 tips. So look that up on my channel. I think it's the first one in the Curse of Strahd playlist. I'd recommend starting there. Sorry that instead of saying what the tips are, it might be easier and better if you just go on the video. I'm trying to remember what they are. It's things like read the book. God, can't remember what else. This is why you should watch the video. Hey there, I'm a newer fan of the channel. I've seen your videos about the new Ravenloft. They've been so helpful. Thank you for being so insightful. Thank you. Jirachi, if I pronounced that right. Sorry if I haven't. Jeeves Osiris is how it's said. It's not a stupid name. It's a great name. I have also made the wives different using your advice from previous videos. Hey! Although I had Astrania be a seductress political nightmare type. Yeah, that works as well. I've seen other people do that as well. Seductress political nightmare type. Yeah, that works as well. I've seen other people do that as well. I agree. Your channel's been very helpful, and your 3-pile guide is great too. You're one of the YouTubers to try and watch every video. Thank you, Rowan. That means a lot. 3-pile guide, for those of you who don't know, 3-pile technique is you do the Tarokka Reading random, but you remove cards and you split the 3 items into 3 different piles instead of drawing from one big pile. And in that way, you can control. And if the 3 piles are like certain cards, so you're more likely to get the tome in places like Vallaki, the winery, the windmill. The Sunsword is a later game item, so it's more like the Amber Temple of Berez, and then the symbols in between. So you can still do it random, but you get a spread out draw, and you may not get all the items ending up where you'd want to be if you rig the draw, but you can do it random without having to like rig the draw if that bothers you. My games consist of a bard, druid, fighter, monk. Who should be their fated ally? Also, do you think they can kill Strahd without either the sword or the holy symbol? Just make sure I haven't missed any other questions. Ooh, their fated ally. Assuming this is assuming you're rigging it and you can choose who the ally is. A bard can heal and a druid can heal. Can a monk heal? I'm not too familiar with monks. So if they don't choose healing spells, maybe Rictavio, because he can heal. That's a tough one. Maybe. I don't know. Because I was going to say, I'm always a big fan of Ez, but you've already got like a fighter and, you know, a fair few spellcasters. Is there a reason you ask? Are you worried that they lack in a certain capacity? Healing was the one thing I thought of straight first of all. But if you're worried that, like, oh, they haven't got a healer or things like that, then if you're able to give me a bit more guidance, I might be able to direct a bit more, maybe. And to the second half of your question, can they kill Strahd without the sword or holy symbol? They can. It's harder. A lot harder, probably, and especially if you haven't got like somebody doing radiant damage, like a paladin or a cleric. I don't know how many radiant spells a bard or a druid would get. Depends on the monk as well. I've heard, so I don't know if this is like a monk thing that all monks have, or if it's a certain subclass of monk. But I've heard that about certain monks they can stun creatures, and then that affects Strahd's ability to face through walls and move around. So if depending on oh, my throat's going. Sorry folks, let me have another sip of water. So annoying. The worst time to have a sore throat. Depending on what kind of monk they are, or if they do that, then they might be okay without the sword and the symbol, but they just have to like sort of hammer in with other big attacks. Your video's been incredibly helpful, thank you. Thank you, Twin Steel, as well. Your emojis. Jirachi, let me just make sure I haven't missed any questions. Good. Just started my own Ravenloft setting, and I've been discussing stress and fear with my players. I want to use the fear from Vampyr with stress from the Darkest Dungeon. Is that too much? I'm not a very good person to ask this question to, because I've not even really used fear and stress in my game, which is probably a bad thing. I probably should have done. I'm not familiar with stress from Darkest Dungeon, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question, sorry. And it's that gut feeling of if you think it might be too much, it probably is too much. Maybe do one or the other, not both. But then again, I think I've heard people say that the fear and stress, or the fear from Vampyr can be quite tame. So I see what you're saying. Fear from Vampyr, stress from Darkest Dungeon. So it's not like fear and stress. Okay. Yeah, like I said, not too familiar with it, so I'm distracted. There's fireworks outside, even though it's raining. How strange. Yeah, it's... Yeah, let me know how you get on with that, though. I'm curious. Oh my gosh, Porth Marion, you've stayed in every year from the age of a baby 20 or 18. I had that similar with, I don't know if you're familiar with Tenby. Tenby is southwest Wales. It's a lovely little seaside town, and I used to go there every year with my family until I was like 18. So yeah, that's my Porth Marion. Oh, that's lush. I've only been there once, and it was only like 2 years ago or something, a sort of North Wales holiday. But I thought the place was amazing. I thought we were lovely. Appreciate you posting variants and your house rules. Thank you. Oh, Twin Steel, I recognise you now. Are you the person who often asks? I've seen you comment before saying about variants and house rules. Yeah. You're welcome. Some of them might be me misunderstanding and doing the rules, or more than variants and house rules, but there we go. Thanks again for all the answers. You're welcome. Rowan, I'd call the 3-power technique semi-random. Makes it so much easier. Also visually really cool to have multiple powers of cards. Yeah. Thanks. You should have another drink before I continue. I do feel my throat going. I'm glad we've hit an hour. That was my goal originally. I'm happy to keep going until, probably 10 o'clock at the latest, so another hour at the most. I don't know if my voice will last that long. We shall see. Or until everyone has questions, or my voice basically stops working or whatever. Another thing I was trying to do in my game is expand the region to include the lands taken from Gundarak and added Immol too as well. I was going to expand the module to level 15 plus, so I did things to make it so they have to unlock some parts of the items by restoring the items to their former strength. I think it's a really cool idea. I'm not too familiar with the Gundarak locations and Immol, but I think that's cool to add. In my Barovia travel video, I literally put out earlier this week, I talked about that briefly. I do like the idea of unlocking and restoring items. I want to say, I think it's the critical role stuff. There's some magic items on D&D Beyond where they have slumbering, awakened, and then I can't remember the names of the others, but they're almost like magic items that evolve over time. So it's that kind of thing. And I've heard some people say with the Sunsword that I always thought it was always that you liked it in the Beacon of Argynvost Holt, but I've heard some people say you liked it in the pool water in Kresk, in the shrine. So stuff like that, yeah, I'm all for that. I think it's a cool idea. If you add so I don't know if you're familiar with the novel Vampyr of the Mists, which is the story of Jander Sunstar when he went to Barovia. The holy symbol of Ravenkind is in that. And what I did in my post-Curse of Strahd game is I added there's a druid circle just outside the village of Barovia, which obviously isn't in vanilla Curse of Strahd. And I had it that it had extra abilities when they took it there. And the extra abilities are actually from Mandymod. So Mandymod changed some stuff it could do, and one of them was like it could summon swarms of ravens, stuff like that. So that's quite cool. You might want to consider something like that. Hey, you've been to Tembe as well. Cool. When do you think the Keepers of the Feather reveal themselves and their organization to the players? Definitely not straight away. I know that's probably an obvious thing to say. Sorry for pausing and taking sips of water. My throat is really struggling. I like the way it went down in my game. Not to sound, blow my own trumpet, but I kind of had clues drop where they almost, how best to describe it? I wouldn't say they were getting sloppy or not being careful enough, but things were happening. So when we did the winery, anytime they're in danger, I did the thing where it says I think it's in the info in Valaki, it says that once they've done the winery or helped the Martikovs, 1d4 were-ravens might appear during a really tough battle. And one or two arrived during the battle. They did the hags at the windmill after Valaki, not before Valaki. So they did it at level 5 or 6, not at level 3 or 4. But it was still quite a tough battle. I researched how to do the hags and the coven spells and things like that. And some were-ravens came, and one of the were-ravens got badly injured and flew off. And then I said later on that when they were at the inn, one of the characters saw a woman who seemed, one of the regulars, and she seemed like she was in pain. I know there's the whole thing of it probably been over an hour and she would have short rested, if we're speaking mechanically. But yeah, so she, that was like a suggestion that something was going on with that. Then they did the vampire spawn in the coffin shop, and that was really difficult for them. And one of them blew a hole in the ceiling using a spell, forgetting that natural, Barovian daylight doesn't hurt vampire spawn, was hoping that light would come in and hurt them, and it didn't. But so that they had some sort of win out of that, a raven flew in, and it was one of the were-ravens. It basically allowed the were-ravens to come in and attack. One of the were-ravens got killed by a vampire spawn draining it dry, even though they're aimed to piercing damage from the bite. They were drained by the necrotic damage, and their max HP went to 0. And I said that when the person transformed, it was someone they knew from the Blue Water Inn. It was like one of the regulars, one of the friends of the Martikov family. And then later, after that, the next time it was the Blue Water Inn, they were having a wake for them. And they recognized one of the voices of one of the were-ravens who was either there or at the windmill fight. Stuff like that. So it was almost like little clues. And then the event, and then at one point, after that, I think, no, not Dav. What's her name? I've forgotten her name. The wife. Irwin's wife. Danica. Danica said something like, we got something to tell you. We've not been truthful with you. We're actually, and my players are like, we know, we'll keep your secret safe. And that was great. So it didn't get revealed straight away, and it kind of got revealed sort of a little bit in that way, if you get what I mean. I felt like it worked well. Oh, Rowan, I don't know if you've already left at this point. Thanks, mate. You needed to head off, and then a friend called you on Discord. Enjoy the rest of the AMA. Thanks. HSoR Quest, you should check out the playlist. You're on it a few times. Thanks again for sharing how you play. Oh, thank you. I'll check that out. Jander is actually going to be an NPC at some point. He helped my party's paladin escape the crypts of Ravenloft and brought him to Mad Mage, who's semi-cured his vampirism, turning him into a vampire. Very cool. So I didn't add Jander into Curse of Strahd. He's been met in my wider Ravenloft campaign. They met him in Daemonlu, or Daemonlu, I think I always pronounce it wrong, which is the sort of domain where it's like, it comes across as a fancy city, but everyone's poor, and there's weekly masquerade parties, and it's almost like Gothic Cinderella. She hates it when people are like fake and can disintegrate people. But anyway, Jander was there. They've also met Fave Sunstar as well, Jander's daughter. So they met her in Forlorn, and then when they left Forlorn, they introduced her to Jander. She hated Jander's guts initially, but then they were like, no, he's cool, he's fine, he's not as bad as you thought. And, you know, so she was, they're kind of on okay-ish terms, rather than like, I think in Vampyr Sky it suggests that like she wants to kill him. I could come up with more questions, but they are already being over and your throat troubling you. Oh, bless you. I think I'll refrain. Hopefully you'll recover soon. Thanks, man. I probably will call time in about 5-10 minutes. So if anyone's got any burning questions, feel free to add. Now's the time, I guess. Speak now or forever hold your peace, or whatever they say, or weddings. This was prior to the game starting. Oh, I should say, before I move on, I might do, this is the first one. I might do another one of these closer to Christmas and then do them semi-regularly. So if you haven't got a question now, or, you know, what I'm trying to say is that I'll do more of these in the future. So this was prior to the game starting, and Jander is off to deal with his clones, leaving the Vampyr to work for the Weathermay Foxgrove twins, Foxglove, Foxgrove, via the House of Lament to get passage to Ravenloft. Nice, cool. I've introduced the twins. In fact, Jennifer is traveling with my players. So I did what I call the second Tarokka reading. So Madame Eva gave the first one in Curse of Strahd, as we know, and the second one was given by a male Vistana. That's a whole thing, and led them to magic items and a fated ally spread throughout all the domains of dread. And Jennifer was the fated ally. So they've been traveling around with Jennifer for a long time now. She's accompanied them on lots of different adventures. None of the players know anything about Ravenloft, so I made the characters for them. The Ranger is actually from Daemonlu. Oh, great. Cool. No more any questions, just discussing at this point. Thank you for the insight. Oh, thank you. More AMAs would be great. Well, I've enjoyed this. This was a test for me to see how it go, and I'm really happy with how it's gone. And it's finding the sweet spot as well. If I do this too regularly, it might be that, this is the first one, and this channel's been live for a year and a half, nearly 2 years. So I can understand it's kind of long overdue, but if I do them every 2-3 months, is that too often? But then I guess we'll see. I can always do one in before Christmas and see how that goes. And then if not many people can come to that and it's quiet, then I know to leave it longer, that kind of thing. Thank you for doing this. Couldn't believe my luck catching you live. No worries. Thank you. That's the end of the chat as things stand. So I'll give it 2 more minutes. If there are no more questions, I'll call time. I said, if there's no questions, I'll do a Tarokka draw. Let's do a second Tarokka reading now. Got the cards. I'll need to get the document up. That would help. So I'll go to I won't do it properly as one would, where they read out, the style of the, like when Madame Eva like says the clues properly. I'm going to go straight to the like appendix, which just says what locations you would get or what allies. Oh, I need to separate the decks first. Is there a place I can find a resource for Tarokka readings? That seems interesting. Bear with me a second. Do you mean in general, sorry, or do you mean for the second Tarokka reading, or like the one I'm talking about now, or something else, sorry? Sorry if I've misunderstood. If it's Tarokka readings in general, I did do a video that kind of gives an overview on how to do it for the one in Curse of Strahd. So the second Tarokka reading's on DM's Guild, but I've done 2 videos about it. So it was the very first video I ever did was a demo draw and like a sort of promo video for it. And then I did another one like a year later where I just did some more example draws to give an idea of what it's like. But it's great for a domain hopping campaign because then it like, when I did it in my own campaign before making a DM's Guild product, they got Falkovnia, which is where they were already, the Carnival and the Sea of Sorrows for item locations, and Jennifer Weathermay Foxgrove for the ally who's in Mordant. So there's 4 places, well, 3 places outside of the place they're in already they knew they had to go to. And then, of course, I introduced other domains beyond that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yes, so I've got the 14 high deck cards. So I'll shuffle the low deck cards, draw 3. And what I do as well is each card has 3 options. So that way it's, you know, less likely to get the same location. I mean, there's a risk you might get the same location twice, but you shouldn't get the same location 3 times. And it's every location listed in Van Richten's guide, even the minor domains listed at the back where they've got like a paragraph each. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then let's just draw 1 high deck card. So I've got Thief, Dictator, Transmuter. So where's my webcam? Thief, Dictator. Got a bit of glare from my ring light. One's card drops on the floor. Transmuter. Executioner. So you only do 4 cards. It explains why you don't draw a 5th card. Where's that card gone? Okay. Thief, Dictator, Transmuter. So Thief, the options are Lemordia, Falkovnia, or the Lighthouse in the Sea of Sorrows. Dictator, Falkovnia, the Carnival, and Tovag. And Transmuter, Falkovnia, the Carnival, and Forlorn. So you're meant to choose as you go along as well. So say that it's a bit risky, because say if I chose Falkovnia for Thief, and then the Carnival for Dictator, Transmuter would be Falkovnia, the Carnival, and Forlorn. So you either choose Falkovnia or the Carnival again, or Forlorn. But I mean, I'd be pretty happy with that, Falkovnia, the Carnival, and Forlorn. I've run all 3 of those. I should give an indication of what the clues are like. So if you chose Falkovnia for the Thief, a ruined city where the people scavenge to survive. They keep quiet in order to avoid detection from zombies, or worse, the Talons. One of them has your treasure, and that's the sub-location Silbervas in Falkovnia. We go back to the appendix. Dictator. I said the Carnival. I see a Carnival. I don't know why the Dictator card would show a Carnival. Anyway, your treasure awaits you in the Lost and Found. And the reason it says in the like non-box text description is because Isolde's kind of considered a like dictator in her leadership style. There was a question about how do I handle box text, and I think I overlooked it. Sorry. to whoever asked that. I might quickly go back up and answer that before I finish off because I feel bad for missing it. And then transmuter. Where are you, transmuter? Oh, here we go. That was, say if we chose Forlorn. Find the castle known as Tristan Noir, just be careful. Its ruler is a fearsome Vampyr, or is it a ghost? And that's Forlorn, as detailed in my maintenance guide. And then the ally was Executioner. I got a feeling they're quite interesting choices. Gondogor, who's the knight who's mentioned in Falkovnia. Eric Zal'honan, who is the ghostly son of Firan Zal'honan, aka Azalin Rex, and Amelia the Vampire, who's one of the carnival performers. So say if you chose, we'll choose Eric because Gondogor is found in Falkovnia and Amelia is at the carnival, so it's like another place you can go to. A tragic story, a rebel son executed by his dictator father. He still haunts the ruins of his father's castle, and that's Castle Avernus in Darkon. There you go. And then you'd lead the players to those places. I feel like there was another question. I've also recently started thinking equivalent treasures or items to find in other domains similar to stuff like the Holy Symbol and the Sunsword. What would they be for Falkovnia, for instance? Oh, good question. I do have suggestions of magic items in the second Tarokka reading. Let me see what I suggest. And I say try and gear it to your players. So, but then it's tricky if, like, you know, some of them aren't necessarily gothic. A Holy Avenger would be good for a Capan. That could work. That could work really well in Falkovnia, actually, because I think you do more damage to undead. Staff of the Magi, if you've got a spellcaster. My Wizard PC has that. My Paladin took some levels in Warlock, so instead of a Holy Avenger, I gave him a Vorpal Sword. Things like a Defender. One of the instruments of the Bards, if it's a Bard. There's a great... I don't think it's that strong. So I recommend giving items that are things like I think Holy Symbol and Sunsword are both legendary. So you probably want something of that level. But there is a magic item called the Devotee's Censer. I think it's in Tasha's guide. But that's only considered rare. So it's like a bit of a downgrade. But that does extra radiant damage. And it can heal people as well. By like emanates a thin cloud of incense. So something like that, I guess, feels quite on brand with Ravenloft. One last thing I wanted to mention, more discussion. I took Mordenkainen out for Firan. Just makes more sense to me. Yes, I did a video talking about alternatives for Mad Mage, and Firan was one of them. And I can understand if people swap Mordenkainen out for somebody, because Mordenkainen does feel like a weird choice. I did Mordenkainen because I didn't really know any better. I just thought Mordenkainen was cool, even though none of my players knew who he was. But if I were to do it again, I'd probably use Firan or somebody like that. Definitely good idea. Right. I'll come back and check if there's any more questions. I remember there was a question where somebody said about box text. Let's see if I can find it. Will search work? That was it. It was a question from Adam. Gosh, this was ages ago. Sorry. How do you handle description of box text? So it's probably a weak point of mine, actually. I tend to... I mean, I just read what's from the book. So say Curse of Strahd, read from the book. I do know some people say, oh, the book isn't great and you can like flavor it and tweak it, but I like what's in the book. And then description. And it's bad as well if I'm not using an adventure that's like official. So there isn't box text. I'm pretty notorious for just being like, you enter this room, there's a table, there's a window. So I'm doing Hazlick's Tower in Haslan. And earlier today, funnily enough, my... prep for tomorrow's session, they're hopefully arriving to the tower in tomorrow's session. I wrote a description for every single floor. So sort of flex my writing muscle and did that. So yeah, I need to get better at it when it comes to stuff that isn't like automatically. Like in Curse of Strahd, it's great because everything has box text and descriptions, or most stuff does. So yeah, I don't tend to. I know there's some DMs who customize it, or I think it was a lunch break video, Heroes video that says they try and tweak it and give advice on that. So that could be worth looking at if you want to find that. All right, I'm back at the bottom now. He's going to be there to figure out what's going on with him. I know where the Azalin went to the past to alter him. Ever being a lich and the driver trying to still he's trying to escape. Yeah, cool. I love Firan. So Firan has just been reintroduced in my campaign. So I introduced Firan. So right, my players did Lost Mine and Found Alva, then they did Curse of Strahd, they defeated Strahd. One of my players who joined mid-campaign was a paladin and was really easy going about where they were from. And I said, would you be up for being from Volkovnia? And got this zombie apocalypse problem. And they're like, yeah, great. And the great thing is that like, they could give a bit more lore and info. And when we finished Curse of Strahd and I was like, should we carry on with the sequel? They were like, yes, please. And that character and that player was one of the people who stayed on. And they were like, I want to go home to Volkovnia. And I was like, oh, I guess I got to run Volkovnia. They did Volkovnia. I think they did a pit stop in Markovia as well. It's a long story. And then when they went back to Barovia, because we had to, I mentioned really early on that we had to like rush the end of the campaign. So they didn't do Berez and they didn't do the Amber Temple. And what's really annoying is I prepared Berez as well because I thought they were Argynvost halt at the time. And it was then that the two players who were a couple said we're moving to remote Canada. And luckily, I was still able to use it because they went back to Barovia and they felt like they had loose ends to tie up. They wanted to do Barovia. They were worried about Lysaga from what they'd heard from people. And when they went to see Madame Eva again after they had this second Tarokka reading from a male Vistana, Madame Eva introduced them to Firan, and Firan went with them to the Amber Temple. So again, and he, I think he says it in his info that he's looking for amber vestiges, and of course, the Amber Temple is like jackpot. So that was fun. And then he basically said, right, okay, Madame Eva said something about a prophecy because of this second Tarokka reading you had. I'll help her research it. He did a bunch of other domains. And then one time they revisited Barovia. Madame Eva visited them and said, Firan's gone missing. I think he's in Azalin. Can you go look for him? And so they went to Azalin, which is where they are now, and they've just found they've just found Firan. They literally reunited him in the last session last week. It was the first time you've seen him. I put it on Blue Sky. First time they'd seen him out of game in over 2 years, and it was about 90 sessions ago. So they were like, hey, we remember you. So, and I play Firan as quite, like, the book says Firan is quite arrogant and can come across as quite unfriendly, and I played him as like really nice and friendly, and they absolutely adore him, which is going to be great when you get the reveal later on of who he actually is, and then when they got to fight Azalin later. So looking forward to that. So yeah, that's how I'm playing Firan, and then of course when it comes time for the end game, Firan will take them to Darkon. They'll fight Darkless Rax, and Azalin will return, and then they've got to fight Azalin. So really looking forward to that. I kind of talk about it more. So as well as doing a video all about Firan, I did a video recently where I said, here are my upcoming plans. And I talk about the sort of Firan, Darkless, Azalin endgame stuff. Right. The chat has gone quiet. I don't know if... there are still some people here. You can see... I've got so carried away looking at the chat. I haven't even looked at all the functionality on here. Apparently there's like an analytics dashboard. I haven't even looked. But yeah, thank you everyone. It's been a lot of fun. Seems like a good time to end it now. So I'll keep this on my channel. So if you want to watch this back another time, or for people who I seem silly saying this because if you've watched it back, you probably watched it back and watched it all. Been a pleasure, great talk to you. You too. Thank you. Thank you for all the questions. Thanks for all the kind words as well. It means so much to me. It means a lot. And like I said, I will hope to do more of these in the future. And yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll see you soon. I'll do my cheesy outro like I do in my videos. Thank you, Miss Wanderers, and fade to black. Cheers all. I'm hitting end stream in 3, 2, 1, now. Not quite now. Your stream will stop immediately if you press this again. Okay, now.